Listen to me carefully, brother. There's a moment that every woman who has ever hurt a good man experiences. It doesn't come when she expects it. It doesn't arrive in the form she imagines. And by the time she feels it, it's already too late to do anything about it. You see, when a woman hurts a good man, when she dismisses him, disrespects him, takes his loyalty for granted, she doesn't feel the weight of that immediately. In fact, she feels nothing. Maybe even relief. Maybe even power. But there's a trigger. A very specific trigger that changes everything. It's not when he cries, it's not when he begs, it's not when he sends that long paragraph text at 2 a.m. trying to understand what went wrong. No, it's when he goes silent, when his energy disappears, when the man who once made her the center of his world suddenly starts building a world she's no longer invited to. That's when the regret begins. That's when she realizes she didn't just lose a boyfriend, she lost a man. She will spend years trying to find again in other men and failing every single time. And today, I'm going to break down exactly what happens in her mind, in her heart, and in her future when a good man finally stops giving her the one thing she took for granted, himself. Here's what nobody prepares you for when you're a good man in today's world. The very qualities that make you valuable, your consistency, your emotional depth, your loyalty, your ability to show up and stay, these are the exact qualities that modern women have been conditioned to overlook. Not because these qualities are worthless, but because the dating landscape has rewired what feels exciting versus what is actually valuable. Think about it. She's been through the emotional roller coasters, the guys who were hot and cold, the ones who kept her guessing, the ones who gave her anxiety that she mistook for attraction, the push-pull dynamics that kept her nervous system on high alert, and then you walk in, calm, present, consistent, emotionally available. You don't play games because you don't need to. You show up as you are because you're secure in who you are. And you know what happens? She gets bored. Not because you're boring, but because stability feels foreign to someone who's only known chaos. Peace feels suspicious to someone who's been trained to associate love with anxiety. So what does she do? She starts testing you, pulling back to see if you'll chase, creating drama to see if you'll react, throwing mood swings at you to see if you'll break, mentioning other men to see if you'll compete. And you, being the good man you are, you try to fix it. You communicate, you ask what's wrong, you adjust, you accommodate, you bend yourself into shapes you were never meant to take, trying to make her comfortable. But here's what you don't realize in that moment. Every time you overextend, you lose a piece of your power. Every time you chase when you should stand still, you confirm her suspicion that your loyalty is unlimited and therefore worthless. Because here's an uncomfortable truth about human psychology. We don't value what we don't have to earn. And when you give everything without requiring anything, you train her to expect everything while giving nothing. That's not a relationship. That's an arrangement where you're the only one paying. But here's where it gets interesting, brother. Because everything I just described, that's not the end of the story. That's the setup. What happens next is what most men never get to experience because they never reach the point of doing what I'm about to tell you. Stay with me, because the next part changes everything. There's a moment that happens in every good man's journey. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with fanfare. Sometimes it happens in the middle of the night. Sometimes it happens when you're driving alone. Sometimes it happens when you catch your reflection and don't recognize the exhausted, depleted man staring back at you. It's the moment you realize, I'm not losing her, I'm losing myself. That moment is everything. Because up until that point, you've been asking the wrong question. You've been asking, what do I need to do to make her stay? What do I need to change? What did I do wrong? But in that moment, a new question emerges. Why am I fighting so hard to keep someone who isn't fighting at all to keep me? And brother, when that question lands, really lands, something fundamental shifts inside you. You stop trying to fix what she's actively breaking. You stop chasing someone who keeps running. You stop explaining yourself to someone who's already decided not to understand. You just stop, not with anger, not with a dramatic exit, not with a long message telling her everything she did wrong. You stop with silence. And here's what she doesn't expect. Your silence doesn't sound like defeat. It sounds like power. Because When a man who has always shown up suddenly doesn't, when a man who has always reached out goes quiet, when a man who has always been available becomes unreachable, it creates a void she didn't know she was going to feel. She was so used to your presence that she forgot it was a choice, not an obligation. She was so used to your consistency that she mistook it for desperation rather than devotion. But now your energy is gone, your attention is gone, your warmth is gone, and she's standing in the cold, wondering why the temperature suddenly dropped. Now here's where most men make a critical mistake. They stop, but then they wait. They go quiet, but they're secretly hoping she'll notice. They pull back, but they're watching for her reaction. That's not detachment, that's strategy disguised as growth, and she can feel it. Women can sense when a man's absence is a tactic versus when it's genuine evolution. Real detachment isn't about making her feel something. It's about you feeling nothing. And when you genuinely stop caring, not pretending to stop, not hoping she'll come back, but actually releasing the grip, that's when the real transformation begins. You start doing things you forgot you loved. You start building things that have nothing to do with her. You start waking up with energy instead of dread. You start looking in the mirror and seeing potential instead of pain. Your body changes because you're channeling emotion into exercise instead of exhaustion. Your mind sharpens because you're focused on growth instead of grief. Your standards elevate because you finally understand that tolerating disrespect isn't love, it's self-abandonment. And here's the thing about a man in transformation: he doesn't announce it. He doesn't post about it. He doesn't try to prove anything to anyone. He just becomes quieter, stronger, more focused, less available, not bitter, that's important, but better. Refined by fire rather, then consumed by it. The man who used to orbit her world is now building his own solar system, and she's not even a planet in it anymore. Now, you might be thinking, does she even notice? Does she even care? Brother, not only does she notice, it begins to haunt her in ways she'll never admit out loud. What I'm about to explain is the psychological process that happens inside her mind when she realizes the man she dismissed has become the man she can't stop thinking about. Let me take you inside her experience now, because understanding this isn't about revenge. It's about clarity. It's about seeing the full picture of what you walked away from and what she walked into. At first, when you went silent, she probably felt relief. Finally, the pressure was off. No more emotional conversations. No more having to perform appreciation she didn't feel. She could breathe. But then something strange starts happening. A few days pass, then a week. She checks her phone. Not a lot, just casually, expecting your name to pop up. It doesn't. She tells herself she doesn't care. She goes out with friends. She entertains the attention of other men. She fills the space. But here's what she can't fill: the specific shape of your absence. Because it wasn't just your presence she lost. It was what your presence provided. The safety, the stability, the knowing that someone was there who actually saw her. Not just her body, not just her surface, but her. The parts she hides, the fears she doesn't post about, the insecurities she only showed you because you made it safe to be imperfect. Other men look at her, but they don't see her. Other men want her, but they don't know her. Other men pursue her, but it feels like performance because it is. And slowly, without announcement, a feeling begins to grow in her chest. It's not dramatic, it's not cinematic, it's quieter than that. It shows up when she's alone at night, scrolling through old photos. It shows up when a new guy says something and she instinctively compares it to how you would have said it, and he falls short. It shows up when she's laughing with friends but feeling empty, when she's surrounded by people but feeling alone in a way she can't explain. That feeling has a name. It's called regret, but she won't call it that. Not yet, because admitting regret means admitting she was wrong. And that's a weight most people aren't ready to carry until it's the only option left. Here's what she does instead of admitting it. She watches. She won't tell anyone, but she checks your social media more than she checks the news. She watches your stories within minutes of you posting, or she waits until later so you won't see her name at the top of the list. She has a system, a ritual she wouldn't admit under interrogation. And what does she see? She sees you thriving. Not performing, thriving. Not posting inspirational quotes to seem healed. Actually thriving. Your energy is different in photos. Your smile reaches your eyes now. You're doing things she never saw you do when you were together, because when you were together, all your energy went to her. Now it goes to you, and it shows. And here's what really gets her. You're not posting about her, not even indirectly. No cryptic quotes, no subliminal messages, no "I'm better off without you" energy. Just silence about her. Complete, absolute silence, as if she never existed. That silence is louder than any angry post could ever be. That silence says something more painful than any revenge could communicate. It says, "You don't matter to me anymore." Not "you hurt me." Not "I'm angry at you." Not "look what you lost." Just, "You're not even on my radar." And for someone who was used to being the center of your world, that erasure is devastating, because she can't even be the villain in your story. She's just not in the story at all. But brother, here's where it gets even deeper. Because her regret doesn't stay in the observation phase. It starts to evolve into something else entirely. What happens next in her psychological journey is something she'll carry for years, and understanding it will give you a perspective you'll never lose. As time passes, she doesn't stop dating. Life goes on. She meets new men. Some of them are attractive, some of them are successful, some of them check the boxes society says should matter, but something's wrong with all of them. She can't put a finger on it at first. This one's too eager, that one's too distant, this one talks too much about himself, that one never asks her anything real, and then it hits her. She's not evaluating them on their own merits, she's evaluating them against you. Not you from the end, when you were depleted and chasing, the you from before that, or worse, the you that exists now, the evolved version she sees from a distance but can no longer touch. She realizes that what she had wasn't common. What you offered wasn't the baseline. The way you listened, actually listened, not just waited for your turn to speak, that was rare. The way you remembered small things she mentioned once, that was rare. The way you made her feel safe enough to be ugly cry honest, that was rare. The way you didn't need her to perform happiness for you to stay, that was rare. And now she's sitting across from men who want her body but don't want to know her mind. Men who say the right things but don't mean them. Men who chase her until they catch her, then lose interest. And in those moments, your ghost walks into the room. Not literally, but in her mind. In the comparison she can't stop making. In the standard you set that no one else seems to reach. You've become the measuring stick. And every other man comes up short. That's not a victory you have to claim out loud. That's a victory that lives in her silent disappointments. In the "I should be happy but I'm not, but I'm" moments. In the settling she'll eventually do because she can't find what she threw away. There's a moment that comes in every woman's journey after losing a good man. It doesn't happen immediately. It might take months, it might take years, but it always arrives. It's the mirror moment. The moment she stops blaming circumstances, stops blaming timing, stops blaming your flaws, and finally looks at her own reflection and asks, "What did I do?" Not, "What did he do wrong?" Not, "Why wasn't he enough?" But "Why did I sabotage something real?" This is where the deep regret lives, because it's not just about losing you anymore. It's about confronting the parts of herself that destroyed what could have been. Was she so addicted to chaos that peace felt like a threat? Was she so used to being hurt that kindness felt suspicious? Was she so afraid of real intimacy that she pushed you away before you could truly see her? These questions don't feel good. They require a level of self-honesty most people spend their entire lives avoiding, and she might never fully answer them, but they linger, they surface at unexpected moments, and they force her to confront a painful truth. You were never the problem. Her inability to receive what you offered was the problem, and that's the cruelest kind of regret, the kind where you can't blame anyone else. Now, here's what I need you to understand. Everything I've just described, the watching, the comparing, the mirror moment, none of it requires your attention, none of it requires your engagement. Your only job in this entire process is what I'm about to tell you next, and it's the thing that will determine whether this experience makes you or breaks you. Brother, let me shift focus back to you now, Because her regret is not your victory. Her suffering is not your reward. Your real work has nothing to do with her. Your real work is becoming the man who would never tolerate what you tolerated. The man whose standards are so clear, so firm, so non-negotiable that the version of her who disrespected you wouldn't even get access. Because here's what a lot of men miss. They go through the pain, they do the work, they become better, and then they let another version of the same woman right back in. Different face, same pattern. The external transforms, but the internal boundaries stay soft, and they end up right back where they started, wondering why it keeps happening. That's not transformation, that's repetition with better abs. Real transformation means your internal architecture changes. It means you stop being attracted to chaos. You stop confusing anxiety with chemistry. You stop pursuing women who require you to prove your worth through endless effort. Real transformation means you become boring to the women who need drama and magnetic to the women who recognize peace as the prize. Your peace becomes the filter. Your standards become the gate, and access to you becomes a privilege that must be earned, not assumed. That's the version of you that she'll regret losing the most, not because you got revenge, not because you proved her wrong, but because you became undeniable and she can no longer deny what she lost. What I'm about to tell you now is the final piece, the truth that ties everything together and gives you the freedom you've been looking for. If you're still carrying weight from what happened, if you're still checking for her name, still hoping she'll realize, still waiting for the closure that never comes, listen to the next part carefully. Here's the final truth, and I want you to let this land fully. You don't need her to regret it for you to heal. You don't need her to realize your value for your value to be real. You don't need her apology, her confession, her late night text, or her tears. You need nothing from her anymore. And that's not a sad thing. That's the most liberating thing, because as long as you're waiting for her to recognize what she lost, you're still giving her power over your story. You're still making her the judge of your worth. You're still orbiting her, just from a greater distance. Real freedom means you stop caring whether she regrets it or not. It means her opinion of you becomes irrelevant, not because you're suppressing hurt, but because you've genuinely moved past it. She could text you tomorrow with a full apology, and it wouldn't change your direction. She could show up at your door with tears in her eyes, and you'd feel compassion, but not temptation. She could post about missing you, and you'd scroll past without a second thought. That's not coldness. That's wholeness. You filled the space she left with something better. Yourself, your purpose, your peace, your standards, your vision for a life that doesn't require her validation to feel complete. And here's the beautiful irony. It's only when you truly don't care about her regret that her regret becomes the most intense. It's only when you fully release the need for her recognition that she recognizes you the most. But by then, it doesn't matter. Not because you're punishing her, but because you've graduated to a level where her opinion simply doesn't factor into your equation anymore. So let me leave you with this, brother. She hurt you. That happened. You can't change it. You can't undo it. You can't logic your way out of the pain she caused. But what you can do, what you must do, is refuse to let her be the final author of your story. She wrote a chapter, maybe a painful one, maybe one that left you on the floor at 3 a.m. wondering what was wrong with you. But she didn't write the ending. You do. And the ending you're writing now, the one where you rise without resentment, where you build without bitterness, where you become the man she'll spend years trying to find in other faces, that's the ending that changes everything. Not for her, for you, because the man you're becoming isn't about proving her wrong. It's about proving yourself right, proving that your capacity to love wasn't weakness, it was strength she couldn't handle, proving that your consistency wasn't boring, it was sacred, proving that your silence now isn't defeat, it's the loudest statement you've ever made. You were the man who stayed when you should have walked. Now you're the man who walks when you should be chased. That's not revenge, that's evolution. And brother, that's the ending she never saw coming. The ending where she's the footnote and you're the entire story. She hurt a good man, and she only regretted it when he did the one thing she never expected. He became unreachable, not because he blocked her, not because he hated her, but because he finally realized his peace was worth more than her attention, and that's your victory. Now go claim it.